Okay, so what I'm going to be talking about today is the small cetaceans. And I talked about the larger cetaceans, and I'm going to be talking about smaller marine mammals and some cetaceans, but mostly smaller marine mammals in this talk. Last time I talked about the great whales, the big whales that we see at Point Lobos, which are spectacular. But more often than not, what people see when they come to Point Lobos is the smaller cetaceans. And it's not that you're going to see an orca every time you go to Point Lobos, but you might see an orca every now and then. And so, them being a dolphin, I wanted to include them in the small cetacean part of the program. Um, these are the largest dolphins. Um, can you hear me okay? I thought I heard something. Um, these are the largest dolphins that we find, and they are at the top of the food chain. There's no question about that, because great whites were thought to be at the top of the food chain, but orcas have been discovered to eat great white sharks, and it was discovered up in the Farallon Islands. And orcas that we see around here are the transient orcas. They're the ones that travel up and down the coast and feed primarily on a variety of different things. Unlike the resident orcas up in the Puget Sound, our orcas are transient. They feed on marine mammals, even birds and fish and sharks and things like that. But nevertheless, they're an amazing animal, and they're an incredibly stealth hunter that is able to overtake and overpower other marine mammals such as whales. And they are right now, I'm not sure what their food source is at the time being, but there's no shortage of marine mammals to feed on out there. The orcas that we see, as I was mentioning before, are transient, and they go up and down the coast. I've seen them a few times out whale watching, and they're seen around Monterey Bay, especially in the late spring when the gray whale calves are coming through. Kind of sad to think that these orcas are picking off these calves as they venture across Monterey Bay, but they do nevertheless. And some of the experienced mother cows will herd their calves along the shoreline. If they're in shallow water, they're in good shape. Orcas can't attack them very well. But if they get out into deeper water, if they decide to cross Monterey Bay and go across the open water, there's a good chance they are in big time jeopardy from orcas. And this has become an annual event. Even people from all over the world come to Monterey Bay just to see this event happen. It's not for me, but a lot of people are attracted to that sort of thing. So orcas being one of the dolphins that we see on an irregular basis, I would say, but they're out there. We do see a lot more often though is the Risso's dolphin. Risso's dolphins are the biggest dolphins that we see around here, and they feed on squid primarily. And as you probably know, there's a lot of squid boats out there fishing for squid right now, and the Risso's dolphins are here feeding on squid as well. They have a very pronounced tall dorsal fin, and they look like an orca. An orca would probably max out at around 30 feet long, with the males being larger than the females. And that's true of all of the toothed whales. Males are larger than the females. However, in the baleen whales are, the females are larger. But these big, large pectoral fins and the dorsal fin that sticks up, sometimes about 2.5 to 3 feet long, make them look like an orca. And these are pretty acrobatic animals. They're very gregarious. They feed in schools, live in schools, and they haven't had they do a lot of battle with each other for some reason. And you can see a lot of the scars on the animal. You can see a very pronounced melon on the top of this Risso's dolphin as well. And that is an area where they can create sound. They emit sound waves and are able to actually see underwater with their sonar, which is very, very cool thing to do. Bats can do it, marine mammals can do it as well. These guys get up to about 13 feet long. If you're out whale watching on one of the boats out of Monterey Bay, there's a real good chance that you will see these rhesus dolphins pretty much at any time of the year. Dolphins are a cetacean, like sperm whales and bottlenose whales and other whales like that. Being a cetacean, they are a marine mammal, of course. Marine mammals, as you probably know, have hair, are warm-blooded, nurse their young, and have 3 ear bones. And so these are all mammals. Further offshore, but we can see these from Point Lobos as well, are huge herds of common dolphins. And this is a group of short-beaked common dolphins that are feeding probably on anchovies or sardines or squid. But they form these gigantic herds of 1,000 or 2,000. I've seen several thousand of them out off the Channel Islands, and later in the year, we start to see these guys as well, and they'll just come through and forage on anchovies and sardines out in the bay. They're more common in Southern California, but nevertheless, we do see a lot of these guys in all the age classes. And again, they're a cetacean, a toothed cetacean, and they do emit sound. They're able to find food underwater by emitting sound, and they retrieve that sound, and it shows an image of the food that they're looking for. They're so accurate that they can pick up, they've done studies in labs and stuff like that, and in pools, and the dolphin can see a dime or a nickel on the bottom of a pool. And so they can actually read their environment through sound, which is quite incredible. And it makes them very able to make a living out in the ocean, and it's not easy to make a living out in the ocean. There's a lot of variables involved, but they seem to be very successful at it. And if you're looking offshore and you see a lot of whitecaps on a very calm day, very good chance that you're going to be seeing some kind of cetacean out there, maybe a bottlenose dolphin, it may be a short-beaked common dolphin, long-beaked common dolphin, rhesus dolphins, and we have Dall's porpoise here occasionally as well. So keep your eyes peeled on the water. Take a glance out at the water every now and then. When you're at Point Lobos, you might be in for another treat of seeing these guys. Elephant seals, we see these on another irregular basis, but they can be seen down at Piedras Blancas or up at Ano Nuevo. Elephant seals are amazing creatures. They are able to dive a mile deep and stay down an hour, which is totally unbelievable, but that's what they do. And they come ashore here in December and mate. They form large harems, mate with several individual females, and they'll stay on the beach with the young actually until about April, and the females will go off and start foraging in February. But as I said, these guys can dive to a mile deep. Once they leave land, they'll disperse out into the Pacific and travel as far north as Alaska, diving in really deep water and feeding on sharks and rays and probably deep water squids and the stuff that makes up the water column in between the bottom and the surface. And they're loners. They'll go out there and just feed alone for months and months at a time, coming back to their usual beach that they were born in and form harems. There's probably around 150,000, probably more than that. 150,000 is a low figure, I would guess, for elephant seals now. And they've come back from the brink of extinction like a lot of other marine mammals. Unfortunately for all marine mammals, they've been exploited in one way or another. Well, the elephant seals come ashore, form harems. They'll have a single pup, a calf, and the calf will nurse on some of nature's richest milk, just like the other seals and sea lions and stuff that we talk about. Well, sea lion milk's not as rich, but the seal milk is incredibly rich. It's half fat, more like yogurt than milk. And that is injected into the mouths of the young animals, and they'll probably quadruple their body weights, the young guys, before they leave land, and the females will lose a lot of weight. These males are incredible in that and this is a male we're looking at, you can see the large nose, like an elephant's nose, kind of, the proboscis is amazing. They'll inseminate as many as 150 females in a season without leaving the beach, and they'll just hang out and rest with the young guys. So they have tremendous stores of fat, and all marine mammals have fat, except for the sea otter. I'll talk about them in a little bit. But these guys come ashore. We had an elephant seal released last week at Point Lobos, or a week ago or 2 weeks ago maybe. And that animal hung around for a while and ended up in the restroom at Whalers Cove and had to be recaptured and taken someplace else. So it's not unusual to see the young elephant seals on the beaches. They just come in and rest for a while and often will head out, but sometimes they have to be captured. These young guys are pretty interesting to watch. They feed on yogurt-like milk, which, as I said, fattens them up amazingly. And they'll leave the beach at about 400 pounds, born at around, I don't know exactly what the weight is, maybe 30 or 40 pounds. And they'll leave the beach at around 400 pounds or so in some cases. The big weaners, we call them super weaners, are weaners that steal milk from other mothers and get to be about twice the size of other young marine mammals of their type. And these guys are thought to be the alpha bulls of the following year or later, of course, when they get to be larger. They'll take on the big bulls, and if they are big enough, they'll form a harem of their own. Okay, well, one of the favorite animals that we see at Point Lobos, especially among our docent group, is the harbor seal. And harbor seals are a true seal. We have them at Point Lobos all year long. And I was a diver at Point Lobos, and I would dive with these harbor seals all the time. And they would come up and check me out and see what I was doing and hang out with me for a long period of time. They're born in April normally, and they get up to about 250 pounds or so. But the young ones are really curious. And you can see in this picture the vibrissae, the whiskers that they have, that they can sense water movement. And they found that harbor seals can actually survive in the wilds blind because of their unique ability to sense water movement and probably smell underwater with their vibrissae. And so we've seen blind harbor seals make a living and do okay. The pups that are born at Point Lobos are pretty well watched over by a group called the Pup Watch docents, and they keep people from making a lot of noise and stuff. So once the pups are born, the mothers and the pups will bond, totally bond, and they'll spend a great deal of time together until they're weaned. And they're weaned in a very short period of time, actually, up to 6 weeks. And then, but sometimes less, 3 to 6 weeks. Once they're weaned, the moms and pups might hang out a little bit together, but the mother will have to forcibly wean the poor little guy, and you can hear them squealing and hollering for milk after this happens. Kind of sad to watch, but they do okay. They double their body weights nursing on, again, some of nature's richest milk. Harbor seals are born at about 11 to 20 pounds. By the time they leave the beach, they'll be double, maybe triple that body weight. So the female harbor seals and the male harbor seals look alike. It's hard to really tell what the sex is unless you can see the underside of the belly. Mating has just occurred in the harbor seals, and we can look forward to seeing another group being born next year. They'll come into the coves like Moss Cove, Whalers Cove, China Cove, and kind of hang out there in these nursing groups for a while. But right now, if you go look at those nursing places, except for China Beach, you won't see many harbor seals because they disperse and go out and do their thing. They feed mostly at night on squid, if there's squid around, but their favorite food is octopus. And they go out and feed on these nocturnal animals like octopus and do very well for themselves. Population isn't expanding rapidly like some other marine mammals, but it's holding its own and they're doing very well. The spots on the harbor seals vary from animal to animal. No two animals look alike. So the spots vary, colors vary, but they're usually spotted and gray in color. As I mentioned, they nurse on some of nature's richest milk and gain weight quite quickly. This young guy was fairly recently born because you can see the fetal folds in the animal, which indicates he's been in the womb for a while. This is obviously a female. You can see the two mammary glands there. This is a healthy female. She's come in nice and fat. And that's good because she's going to be imparting a lot of energy into this pup. For every pound she loses, the pup gains a half a pound. And so she'll lose up to 20% of her body weight if she doesn't leave the beach and go out and feed. And sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. It depends on the condition of the harbor seals. And our harbor seals looked really good this year. They were doing very, very well. So that's good. Sea lions are responsible for Point Lobos being named. The Spanish that were sailing by years ago named the point Punta de los Lobos Marinos, which means the point of the sea wolves, because they heard these sea lions barking out on the rocks of Point Lobos. So Point Lobos has been immersed in marine mammal lore from the beginning until now. There was whaling going on at Whalers Cove and lots of marine mammals around the reserve, and so it's been marine mammals are part of its history. The harbor seals have internal ears, so you can tell the difference between a harbor seal and a sea lion by looking at the ears. There's the little appendage of an ear for the California sea lions. Sea lions are also uniform in color, but they do have these long vibrissae, very similar to the harbor seals. Sea lions get up to, about 800 pounds in the case of the males. Females are much smaller, maybe a third of their size. And we don't see a lot of females here at Point Lobos, although we do see immature females in the Monterey area. But once the females become sexually active, they stay in and around the Channel Islands down off of Santa Barbara. And so they form these large harems out on the islands. And there's several thousand, many thousands of sea lions out on the Channel Islands, particularly San Miguel, where they have 40,000 animals in a rookery out there. So the males, as you can see, not very clear, but they have this big bump on the head. It's called a sagittal crest. And that sagittal crest is spermogenetic. It grows every year as the animal becomes sexually active. And they're only sexually active for a couple months during the year. And these big males will stay in and around Point Lobos as they get older, but the younger males will all travel down to the Channel Islands looking to hook up with some females. They really don't have any part in raising the animals, but they have a big part in their life. This is a group of female sea lions. I just wanted to throw this in here because you don't see a lot of mature female sea lions at Point Lobos. They stay in and around the Channel Islands. And by looking at this picture, you can see that the females are much smaller. They're all pretty much uniform in color. And they're very skittish at this point in their lives. But this is the group of females out on the Channel Islands that we wouldn't get to see normally. And one of our favorite marine mammals that we see around Point Lobos and around the Monterey Bay area, luckily for us, is sea otter. California sea otters are an amazing creature. They have their work cut out for them right now because there's an overabundance of urchins in the area because of the sea star wasting disease. We didn't realize how important sea stars were up until now. Sea stars were really responsible almost for controlling a lot of the grazing animals that interfere with the kelp. Along with sea otters, these urchins now are feeding on the kelp forest. And it's alarming to me to see the number of urchins that we have at Point Lobos. And we really need to start ringing some bells and getting some people's attention because there's a decision that's going to have to be made eventually regarding urchins. And that's whether or not you want to control the urchins in a reserve where everything is fully protected, or if you want to protect the kelp forest where the otter lives. Cormorants feed on small fishes, and it's an important, kelp is motel and restaurant, and the otter has the responsibility for protecting that, natural responsibility that is, for protecting the kelp forest because they eat these grazing animals. They rely on kelp. They rely on the food that kelp helps propagate, because within one kelp holdfast, you can count as many as 150,000 organisms. So you can imagine the importance that kelp has to us and to sea otters in particular, and to the larval fishes and stuff that are born in the kelp forest. Otters, as I mentioned before, are a marine mammal. They're the newest marine mammal. Newest marine mammal, meaning they've only been around for about 3.5 million years. And so they have yet to develop blubber. What they do though, is they eat an awful lot of food, up to 25% of their body weight per day. That is an amazing amount of food. Try and imagine how much that would weigh. I weigh about 170 pounds, so I can't really imagine eating a quarter of my body weight a day. But this is one of their favorite foods, or it is once they start foraging on urchins, and not all sea lions do forage on urchins, unfortunately, right now, because we have a oversupply of urchins. Otters feed on about 40 different organisms, mainly snails and animals and things that don't move around on the bottom very much. Although when foraging at night, I'm sure they feed on octopuses and stuff like that. And their paws are very sensitive. They can feel things and sense movement in the water. And they even are able to smell underwater. They're able to, the reason they know that is they've watched otters feeding in places like the harbor, where they will come upon an otter that will pick up these bottles and stuff that are underwater, but have octopus living in them, and they can smell the octopus in the bottle. And so they'll break open the bottle and get the octopus in some cases, or not at all. But these otters that we have around here are smaller than the northern otters that are up in the, Alaska. Our otters get up to a maximum weight of 92 pounds. That's an enormous otter for down here, but generally the males are around 65 pounds. Females would be slightly smaller. They're also known for having the most fur on their bodies of any animal that's ever lived. They have up to 1 million hairs per square inch on their bodies, mainly on their back. And to maintain that fur, they're constantly grooming, and they actually have about 30 or 40, 50% more fur and skin on them than other mammals. And the reason is they need to groom the fur on their backs. So they're actually able to pull the skin around and groom it, brush air into it, and keep it clean. Any oil on an otter would kill it, because it would allow seawater to get to the skin and they become hypothermic. So otters have to meticulously maintain their grooming standards. They're being a new marine mammal in the world. They also don't dive for very long. The longest recorded dive is around 4 minutes, which isn't a long time. Marine mammals like the sea lions and the harbor seals, whales, and others have developed blubber. They also have a lot of what we call myoglobin in the blood and in the muscle tissues, and hemocrats in the blood. Otters have not evolved that long, so they're pretty much reliant upon just being able to dive and dive efficiently and pick up the animals that they need to dive. They can't dive for extended periods of time, but they do dive a lot. They have to make up that diet of 25%. When they do dive, though, they have evolved to have a sinus in their kind of the abdomen area that will pool blood, and it will give them a little bit extra diving time, which is unique to otters as far as I know. Otters are born pretty much all year at Point Lobos, with the peak of the pupping slightly in February. We see a few more pups born in February. The little otters that are born they weigh, maybe a couple of pounds, 3 or 4 pounds, but they're really big, buoyant balls of fur. And they do float right on the surface because they have this woolly pelage that they're born with. After 6 weeks or so, they'll start to shed that woolly pelage and begin to dive. It's really funny to watch them try to dive before they lose that woolly pelage, because they bob like corks. Their little legs will be kicking in the air while they're trying to dive, but they just can't get to the bottom. And it's good that they don't, because they're waiting up there on the surface for the mother who's down diving, and she'll come up and share her food with the young pup. Twinning in marine mammals is extremely rare. It's almost never seen. And if otters do have an additional pup, which has been documented, but it rarely happens, they'll have to get rid of one of the pups and just concentrate on the other one. We have a group of docents that does a pup watch at Point Lobos every month, and they count somewhere up and around 80 pups or so, not pups, I'm sorry, 80 individuals, including pups each month. So if a visitor comes to Point Lobos and they say there's no otters around, well, there are otters around. You just have to get out and look for them. and they're not easy to see because they're out in the kelp, with some kelp across their chest, just sitting there, sleeping out in the kelp. And so they're kind of difficult to see out in the water. I helped fish and game tag otters several times, and we would tag them. And once we got them in the boat, we would, if they were nursing, we would sample milk and stuff like that. But what we discovered in take blood to weigh them, what we discovered is that they are ferocious animals. And it would take two of us to sit on the otter while one person tagged them, the other person milked them a little bit, and another person drew blood. But on a couple of occasions, we were able to trap otters with the pups. And the pups are the cutest things. They're not wild creatures at that point, and they're just actually kind of cute little snuggly little balls of fur. And but that wasn't the case with the mothers, I have to tell you. they are a wild animal, a powerful animal. I have to say, their arms and legs and jaws are extremely powerful. So they're one of the coolest animals that we have at Point Lobos, and they are the most important of the marine mammals that we see at Point Lobos, and that's for sure, because they do the kelp for us such a great service by maintaining it by eating the animals that would normally eat kelp. I worked with U.S. Fish and Wildlife for a number of years back when the otter was relocated out to the Channel Islands. They took 135 animals out to the Channel Islands, and unfortunately, most of them left except for 12 animals. But I was part of a team that was doing research on 10 transects that we had out there. And this is a bottom before otters came in. And you can see that everything has been eaten right down to the substrate. This was a kelp forest at one time, but because of urchins, these little guys that you see, the little dots that you can see here on the rocks, these are urchins. There were thousands of urchins at this particular site earlier. In order to make it look the way it does now, it takes a lot of urchins, and these urchins will just devour everything right down to the rock substrate. And this is why I'm so alarmed by the urchins that are encroaching on Point Lobos right now, because we could lose our kelp forest. If we lose the kelp forest, we've lost a lot. We've lost a plant that provides us with oxygen because it photosynthesizes, a plant that is a home to countless numbers of organisms. It's motel and restaurant to countless marine organisms. So it would be a real shame if we lost the kelp forest because of urchins, and that possibility is real. I'm on a bandwagon, I know, it's one that I can't get off of. So I hope that this gives you a little bit better understanding of the animals and plants and the marine mammals that we have at Point Lobos. And I wanted to show you what the bottom looks like in a healthy bottom where there are no otters. I mean, where there are no urchins to speak of. Within this slide, you could teach a marine biology class, and this is maybe an 18-inch quadrangle here. There's anemones, sea stars, bryozoans, tunicates, algae, sponges, crabs, different kinds of algae, all in this one square 18-inch section. So try to imagine the whole bottom of Point Lobos looking like this, and think about the previous slide as to what it might look like. It's pretty scary. Yeah, I don't know exactly what else to say about that, but I've covered a few of the animals that we have here at Point Lobos, marine mammals. And what I'd like to do now is, is take some questions. And thank you for being interested in our planet.
Thank you, Jerry.
Tracy?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hear me?
I can hear you.
Great.
What should I do now? Should I stop, share,
Yeah, go ahead and stop
or
share.
stop share? Okay. All right. Is that okay?
Yeah, that looks great.
Okay.
Our first question is, Gina would like to know what we can do as humans to reduce the urchins.
Well, if you dive, poke them with a knife. That's about the only thing we can do, unfortunately. There's no other way. And so we have to take some kind of action, underwater action, to stop the urchins from doing what they're doing. In San Diego, a group of divers went out and protected the Point Loma kelp bed. It's the largest kelp bed in California. And they did that by killing the urchins, basically. They did that in Paso Robles as well. Same thing. They went out and basically killed all the urchins that they could find. And without doing that here, there's no other way to do it. And so it goes against the grain, because we don't kill things in the reserve. In my opinion, we're protecting the kelp forest. Management may not see it that way. I don't know.
Excellent question. Why was the elephant seal pup brought to Point Lobos instead of further south where there's a colony?
Well, it's part of their range, essentially, and they do come ashore at Point Lobos periodically. And it was a convenient, safe place to release the animal. A lot of marine mammals that are rehabilitated are released at Point Lobos. There's a launch ramp at Whalers Cove that's easy to release them. I think this animal, I'm not sure where it was released. I thought it was released on the South Shore. But anyway, it worked its way around to the restroom at Point Lobos, where it hung out for a while.
Yes, if anyone wants to see it, I think those photos are shared on our social media. It would be quite alarming to walk into the bathroom.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be a shock.
It would be a surprise. And why does the elephant seal have such a large nose?
I'm not sure. I don't know. It's evolved that way, and it's a display of some kind. It gets really bulbous when they're during the mating season. So I suppose it attracts a female. That's my only guess.
Fantastic photo. Great photo. Really showcased it.
I don't know how clear they were on my end. They didn't look all that clear, although most of the image are pretty crisp. Did they look okay to you?
Yeah, I could see them very clearly.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
I guess when you're sharing, you don't see them as well. I don't know.
Are the tags the way that members of the otter count group at Point Lobos can tell each otter apart?
No, those tags are put on by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. It's for their tagging program and for their research. The otter counters, although they may make a note that the animal is tagged, they don't really have much to do with the tagging program or the tags. I don't think they sex the animals either. They're just counting individuals and pups. I love questions, so don't be bashful if you have questions.
Completely agree. Bring them on. I have a question about the Risso's dolphins, actually.
Risso's? Yeah.
So I had never heard that until you mentioned it the part one. And I didn't realize that, are those more they're more specific to the Pacific?
Yes,
Because growing up in Florida, I had never heard of that kind of a dolphin.
I don't think they have them in the Atlantic. Although I'm not certain of that. I don't believe they exist in the Atlantic. I think they're more of a Northern Pacific species.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
fascinating.
You have bottlenose, a lot of bottlenose dolphins in
Yeah,
Florida.
and you'll see, they'll surprise you. They'll be right there. I mean, right there. It's, and thank goodness it's a dolphin. You're just
Yeah,
happy when you
yeah,
realize it's a dolphin and not a shark. Um,
yeah.
do you think that the designation of Monterey Bay as a sanctuary has improved the health of our bay? I feel like we're seeing more species of whales than in years past.
It certainly has. It's provided a lot more protection, especially from shipping. Shipping is inherently bad for marine mammals. They strike marine mammals and stuff. So in that respect, yes, for sure. The laws that are in force mostly are state laws or federal laws, but the sanctuary itself is more of a watchdog group than an enforcement group. But it certainly helps. It protects the bay from oil drilling and from fishing of certain kinds and things like that. Yeah.
How long do otters usually live?
How long what?
Do otters usually live?
Females live twice as long as males normally. Males live for about 12 years or so, and the females can live up to about 23 years old. Females, you'd think, would have it harder, but evidently fighting other animals for females is pretty hard on the otter. So just being able to mate takes a lot of energy. That's that's my understanding.
Do any of the sea lions in Monterey breed here, or do they all travel to the Channel Islands to breed?
They 99% of them, 99.9% of them, I would say, travel to the Channel Islands to breed. There are every now and then there's maybe during an El Nino year or in a strange year, there will be a couple of animals born up at Ano Nuevo, and we'll see a pup or two born here. They probably don't mate here. Those pups, they don't live, unfortunately.
How do we get more regulatory action to get rid of the urchins? Is there something that citizens can do, or is it?
Citizens, I would say a citizen could go out and slaughter as many urchins as they want, as far as I know. In Point Lobos, it's not the same, unfortunately, because everything is protected at Point Lobos. Outside of Point Lobos, I don't think there's any limit to the number of urchins that a person could take or destroy. So the only way you could do it is to be in the water.
And it's really an overgrowth. It's an overpopulation issue.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it's because of the lack of the sea star. Because of the sea star wasting disease. I should have explained that a little bit. Several years ago, there was a big blob of warm water out off of Northern California. It really interfered with a lot of stuff. And it was caused by global warming, apparently. But the sea stars, during that period of time, developed a disease called the sea star wasting disease, which killed 99% of the sea stars within California, as far as I know, or at least in Northern California. And that disease, having wiped out all those sea stars, allowed the urchins to overpopulate. There's nothing to control them. Otters and sea stars do a pretty good job normally.
Thank you for that clarification.
Sure.
Oh, yes, we do. Are the urchins winning the battle, or are we making progress in reducing their numbers? Related to that, how are the kelp forests doing overall in terms of resisting? Thank you.
Well, the kelp forest at Point Lobos is hanging on, but right on the edge of it, there's a wave of urchins coming in. There's an army of urchins out there coming into Point Lobos right now. We're not winning the battle by any stretch of the imagination. We haven't started to fight them, actually. They should open up all of California to urchin diving, and that would take care of some of them. But unfortunately, the urchins, when you have an overpopulation like that, most of the urchins are not healthy. They have very small gonads. There's very little inside the urchin test. And so the food, the desirability of them for being food doesn't exist, really. They're just not, and otters aren't eating a lot of them because of the poor condition of the urchins. There's just thousands of them, millions of them, trillions of them, probably.
Is there any way to encourage the repopulation of starfish or sea stars?
Yes, that's being done in some labs here and there. And they are releasing some sea stars into the wild. Yes, good question. I don't know any of the details on it, but yes, that is being done. But they would have to put an awful lot of them out in the water, to control what's going on. What might happen, unfortunately, is that the sea stars will come ashore, create an urchin barren like you saw in one of my slides in San Nicolas Island, and then eventually that will come back. The kelp will grow again, but that's going to take years, years, and years, unfortunately. Yeah.
See, I'm keeping an eye. Anyone else have any questions? Those are all really great questions. Learned a lot today.
Good. That's what we're trying to do, teach people about the ocean. Huh?
Absolutely. What long-term damage? I'm not sure I quite understand. Will ensue. Thank you.
Long-term damage, lack of kelp. I mean, the kelp forest will be wiped out. When the otter was originally wiped out, when the great hunt came through and harvested all of the otters in California, there were probably about 16,000 otters in California at one time. That otter population has never recovered. But the thing that I find alarming is the entire subtidal ecology of California has been changed because otters were hunted to near extinction. And there were urchin barrens here and there and everywhere because of lack of otters. And that's what's going to happen at Point Lobos also, is that we will experience an overpopulation of urchins. They'll eat everything. There'll be an urchin barren, and things will recolonize slowly. But what recolonizes may not be the same as what we had before. We don't know. We don't know what it was like before the otter was originally wiped out back in the 1800s. Things were probably different than they are now. Even in the healthy reserve that we have at Point Lobos, it was probably different. But we don't know that. I don't know that for sure. I'm just hypothesizing.
And as far as the fish, that changes obviously feeding and habitat.
Yeah.
So that would be entirely
kelp,
different.
kelp is home, you know, to countless marine organisms and fish. That home would be gone if the urchins come ashore and do what they're intended, what they want to do, and that's eat everything they can. And then they die off. We've seen it over and over in the Channel Islands and outside the Otters range. Mendocino right now it's sad to even think about. There are so many urchins up there that are basically eating everything except for a small amount of bull kelp. The abalone are starving up there. It's a travesty.
It's difficult to hear. Back to we've got a question back on the elephant seal. Is it possible that the large nose of the elephant seal during the mating season is used to ram other alpha males in competition?
No, they don't use their nose for anything except display. When they fight, they ram their chests and their heads together, but the nose gets bloody and stuff like that, but it's not functional as far as fighting goes. But they do fight all the time. The big bulls are fighting to keep their harems, try to protect all those females.
It's a lively area.
Yeah.
It's a big wide world.
Oh, gosh.
Well, let's see. Do we have, if there's anyone else who has a couple more questions? If not, we'll just say.
Release me back to the wilds.
Yes, we'll all go diving and see if we can take care of a few urchins each.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Jerry, so much. This is so informative.
You're welcome.
I'm sharing this
You're so
information
welcome.
with everyone here. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. Thank you for supporting the foundation. And I hope you enjoy, you know, all that's happening in your homes. We're pretty excited to be opening up here, and soon we'll bring you a new topic, and we'll see you again next month, hopefully.
All right.
Thank you,
Okay.
everyone. Have a great
Thanks, Tracy.
Thank you, Jerry. Bye-bye.
You bet. Okay. Bye-bye.